Hey folks, Ariel over here, where I figured it might be time for a little snowpack update. This winter we are doing much better than the last few. If you're new, welcome. I, along with my husband, live in this tiny house about a little over 6,000 feet above sea level in the Wyoming mountains. There's obviously much taller mountains around us, much taller ones out of sight behind the near ones that block your view of them in all directions. We're kind of in a high mountain valley. Anyway, the last 2 years, if you have only been following along then, we had a really pathetically low snowpack. We get most of our snow, or moisture for the year, in the form of snow. That's normal here. We rarely get much rain in the summer, and so if there's not a lot of snow, that's a pretty big problem. The last couple of years were pretty dry. Reservoirs are low. I know there's a drought across much of the west, but this year it is looking better. Not spectacular, but better. The mountains, I think, are running at just a little over 100% of the 50-year average. And down here, I think I'm not sure. I don't have a good long average for this particular spot since this is only the second, winter I've actually had the house here since we moved. But as you can see, it's looking pretty good. If you're going to ask questions about the snow up against the house, that is the snow scarting. Of course, the house is already scarted with the flower planters, but I also have always kept, for 9 winters now, snow piled up around it. I try to shovel it down from the windows so I can see out and you don't get any snow melt leaking backwards through a window frame or anything. So you did see me shovel the tops off there to get it down below the window frames again. But otherwise, I leave the snow around there. It makes an excellent insulated base around the house. Oh, hi there, Velcro. All the critters seem to like the snow. It's really warm today. It got up to 30. We've had unusually warm weather, the 30 Fahrenheit, whatever that would be, -1 or 2 Celsius. We've had unusually warm weather this last little bit. This is the time of year where it's often 30 below, so currently we're running about 60 degrees too warm. And when you're shoveling snow, it's easy to get overheated. However, November and December were well below average. Much of those 2 months was below 0, and we aren't often below 0 that much of those months. So it's been an interesting winter. The snowpack is looking respectable. We had a decent pack starting, and then back kind of the last week of December over Christmas, we got a big storm. I know a lot of you guys did. And while it snowed the whole time here, it did not add any snow to our pack. Instead, we got howling wind with that and actually lost almost all the snow we'd had for the whole winter. The garden had been buried for 2 months at that point, had pretty decent snow walls starting around here and so on, and the nearest little airport clocked gusts at, I think, 93 or 97 miles an hour, and I think we had something very comparable here. It left wind drifts in a few places, along a couple ditch lines and stuff, but mostly it scoured the ground down to bare. You could see grass sticking out, the garden beds were exposed, strawberry leaves sticking out. That happened all across the area. Whole pastures and fields were bare and brown. Mountainsides and mountain tops were bare and brown. I don't know where it took the snow. Maybe blew it all to Iowa or something. So that was kind of depressing and discouraging because it was finally looking good, and then we pretty much lost all the snow in that storm. But since then we've got some replacement storms and it's looking pretty good. The garden's pretty well insulated. Hopefully that doesn't stress the strawberries out too much. That little bit of time they were uncovered, and it's just really encouraging to see the nice deep snow layer around here again. Still no record-breaking amount of snow for me to shovel. And yes, I do use the blower to clear the long lane. My long lane before, when I lived up in the clearing, if you've been following since those days. Hi, little man. This little fellow got himself in a tussle with a neighbor tomcat. Now you're missing a little patch of fur on your backside. Yeah, you're still not the biggest boy around. Not by a long shot. I do use the blower to clear the long lane. Up in the clearing, that was cleared by the caretaker for the property I lived on, which actually is now my husband, Clay. He always cleared that with a big tractor blower. I shoveled snow by hand. I like shoveling snow by hand. I had a little blower all those years, and I never used it because I just don't prefer... You can't make things as neat and tidy and clean. Of course, with dogs and cats walking around on your snowpack, it's a bit harder to keep things neat and tidy and clean, too. If it was just me, I'd have everything perfect and not a track, and anyway, that's just part of having animals. But since we have a fairly long lane out to the road, I do use the little blower to clear that now because usually it's me because most of the time Clay is at work. But I still hate the way a blower leaves little bits and you can't clean it up and you can't pile it up, and anyway, it just doesn't leave the snow the way I like it. So the snow right around the house that I have to look at, I could certainly blow this out, but I choose to shovel it because I prefer doing that. Though I'm thankful to have the blower for doing the long bit to be able to get out to the county road. So that's the snowpack update right now. That's what things are looking like around here. Looks like the next week is going to go back to slightly more seasonable temperatures, highs in the 20s and lows in the single digits, close to 0 Fahrenheit. Some snow off, and it's been really fun to see the sunshine today. We often get between our storms in the winter some brilliant blue sunny days, at least if no one's spraying the sky closed, which they are, of course, today. But we have had snow. It hasn't been any big amounts. Well, this was one of the bigger snows I've shoveled. We got almost a foot in a storm. But a lot of times we get 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 inches in various storms. This year it snowed almost every day, but more 2 inches, 1 inch, 4 inches, 3, 2, and so on. And so there hasn't been much sunshine to be seen because it's been pretty overcast or snowing every day. Of course, the days it's actually snowing are bright, and I love watching the flakes fall. You can still see the hoops for the frost covers, but you can just barely see the lumps now where the beds are. They're pretty well buried under there. So one thing I think I do need to unload a little bit, the rest of our roofs are black and metal, and so they shed pretty well, is the wonderful snowpack that's holding down that temporary plastic I put on the chicken run to keep it dry. It's been working really well, but it's starting to sag a bit from the weight, so I'm going to see if I can unload some of that without getting it free for the wind to catch again. We'll see how that goes. You can see here how instead of making a neat dome from the sidewall edges up to the point of that post, I've got a belly saggy spot going on both sides. So that's what I'm trying to fix. So last year, the setup we had worked because we didn't really have snow. And next year, it will be the sun is brighter again and I am hot. There will be a different setup. We already have a really heavy duty tarp that came off of a different project that is going to go over that, but it didn't happen before winter this year. So this is working, and hopefully I unload enough snow to take all the weight off that. Now the roof kind of does a neat dome instead of having a dip on each side of that center post again, and not take off so much that if we get wind before we get more snow that it takes my plastic off. But this is definitely a less than ideal temporary measure, though it's working. Hey, I know you're there, but you lost your Frisbee. It's out there in the snow. I don't have it. But it's working, and the birds have pretty dry bedding, despite all the snow and wind that we have had. Well, we really only had wind with that one big storm. The rest of the year has been pretty calm, which is nice. And anyway, it's a beautiful day. That's our update as to what the snow is looking like here in mid-January around our little homestead. I hope you guys are all enjoying your winter as well.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Come back next time for more adventures.
Thanks for watching.